Good afternoon, comic book fans. Welcome back to Comics in 5 Minutes. I'm your ever-loving host, Shorty. And it's new comic book day, and there's a whole bunch of, well, it's new comic book day tomorrow, should I say. I've been sorting out my delivery today. There's actually quite a few new things out this week. Not entirely sure what's going to be reviewed like for the rest of the week. Some stuff might sell out, some stuff might not. I might just not bother reading some of it. But we have Homesick Pilots today. This is from Image Comics. And before I get too far into it, I just want to say, a little bit of a warning. I give myself like 10-15 minutes after reading it to kind of like put my thoughts in order, and then I had a bunch of emails come in and a couple of direct messages and some stuff on Twitter and what have you. I have had very little time to think about this after I originally read it, so let's just see how it goes. Thoroughly unplanned. First off, I want to say, Homesick Pilots, I have no idea what to expect when I picked it up. I had kind of avoided anything that's coming on. I'd got the impression that it was vaguely a horror story, but that is it. So first thoughts were, Homesick Pilots. That sounds like a cool name for a band. It is. That's the band that the comic book's about. And they're a bunch of orphans, people who were orphaned, either through foster care or being adopted, and decided to form a punk band. And they go and see a different band that kind of starts with called, Nuclear Bastards. Kind of nice that they get a little tag on the back there. And then this starts a string of events which leads to a haunted house story. That seems to be what it is at its core, but it's got offshoots going elsewhere. I'll get some of that in a second. Because if you've followed this review thing they've been doing for a while, including going back to when I was doing a podcast and what have you, you know I'm a big fan of horror comic books, but you can't do a horror TV series or a horror movie in a comic book form. The two mediums are completely different, and the same things that work for one won't work for the other. What you need to do is embrace form and realize that there are tricks you can do to disorient, to make uncomfortable, and not necessarily scare. I don't think that is like a fully realized idea you can do with comic books. Don't get me wrong, I enjoy horror comic books, but very rare at all that I'll be like, oh gosh, generally chilled. So how do you use form effectively? Well, the prime example of this one is this 2-page spread. Because that's a lot of panels there. And usually when you read a comic book, you'll start top left and go. Clearly a splash page, so you go over the staples and carry on reading the other side. Doesn't quite work that way with this one. Much in the way of Something is Killing the Children. It plays around with the idea that it is a 2-page spread, but it breaks it up in weird places, so sometimes your mind gets drawn to where it's not, your eye, sorry, gets drawn to where it's not supposed to be. And it confuses you a little bit until you realize that's the point of it. This one, it's basically two stories. A group of people breaking in through a window, and some people, a second floor window, others coming through the kitchen at the back, and those stories eventually meet in the middle when they get together. Now, when you read it, you start and you go and you read. Sorry, if people watching at home, that probably looks backwards, but I'm doing it the right way around in my head. But then you get to certain points like, hang on, this is not making sense. You read another panel, realize what's going on, flip right to the end because your brain clicks in straight away. It's done very, very well. That it's like there's no other real way for it to make sense. So it just clicks and you go, yes, cool. And you jump to the end and then read back up and up till you get to the middle point and realize what's been going on is people just exploring the house at the same time without realizing. And that is a nice little disconcerting thing. And it's quite nice. It's not exactly an unusual haunted house trope, but it's one that works quite effectively. And there's a few things like that carry on here. The house coming alive and disorienting doors and windows moving or disappearing. There's a nice bit where a panel twists and it kind of looks like it's the hallway twisting as well, which is again is a nice way of using form and the art as well. All in all, a very successful horror comic book. In fact, it gets into some quite gruesome, wonderful moments, and some of it actually happens almost as a jump scares. And I've just said I know that you can't do TV shows and movies and comic books, but it does a pretty damn good job by just framing things in such a way that one thing happens and another, it goes so quickly. The moment your eye is drawn to it, it's like, what the hell? Not quite a jump scare, but pretty close. It's worth talking about the art while I'm here, because just show that one page, that's excellent. But the art throughout is really, really good. It's very nice bold lines, very nice colouring, really uses shadow quite effectively. It reminds me a little bit of Lock and Key, but Lock and Key has a distinct style to it in terms of like caricatured characters rather than human realistic. This one goes a little bit more realistic, but it doesn't do it in photorealism. It's still drawn. It's fantastic. Writing is brilliant. It like latches onto camp story tropes from horror movies. It does a lot of Teenage Rebellion, a lot of punk influences as well, which work quite nicely. There's an awful lot talking about what makes a good punk gig, and there's a rather excellent little fight scene. And when people talk to each other, the dialogue pops as well, which is really, really good. Not what I expected for a horror story. Usually you get like a slow build, and you get to a certain point and it's like, oh my god, what's going on now? It jumps, and it jumps effectively and quickly, and I love it. I am getting the rest of the series. Thoroughly enjoyable. That's it for me today, though. I'll be back tomorrow. You have to wait and see what I'm reviewing. I honestly don't know. Take it easy. Bye.